Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic / Known Classics. This is episode number 2349, Doubleshot number 2243. Got lots to talk about here. Most stuff to talk about is collected in Doctor Strange Epic Collection, Volume 11, Nightmare on Bleecker Street, which that book collected issues of Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, issues 34. I think it's 48 to 61, along with Marvel Superheroes 12 and 14 material from it. And I think it was also Marvel Comics Presents 143 and Morbius number 9. And of course, they also collected the third annual for the series. I want to talk about the Marvel Superheroes issues first. Mostly put is basically Doctor Strange deal with a brand new character who was actually the son of a character who appeared in Volume 2 of his series, who actually died in issue number 40 of that book. Made his debut in issue number 8, got killed off issue 40, just a recurring character in that book. Yeah, he only appears in this issue and the following issue, in issue 14, and that's it. It is something, though, Marvel is including stuff from the Marvel Superheroes as part of the Epic Collections, because this is not the only one they included in. They also included it I believe it was in the Iron Man one, we collected all the Iron Man stories, and I believe they also collected the first appearance of Squirrel Girl. Yep, her story was collected there too. Yeah, and also, basically these are also specials. Now, with this particular talk about the Doctor Strange story in here, I basically talked about two stories in issue 12, which had also Falcon in it. Issue 14 had, of course, also Iron Man as well. 14 had Speedball, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and if I get to the picture here, When Balls Collide. Yeah, so really good stuff here with these issues. If you're curious who writes the Doctor Strange stories that appears in these books, well, in issue number 12, it's basically done by Roy Thomas, along with Rand Lucier, Jean-Marc Lucier, and Stuart Hampton. The guy's name is Augustine Fife, and he appears for 2 appearances. No, seriously, he appears 2 times. He appears in issue 12, 14. Now, the thing with these specials are released quarterly. Like, basically, issue 12 was released in November of 1992, while 14 was released in May of 1993. It was a quarterly book, and they probably just featured in there. And basically, there's all 3 stories in this one, too. Basically, there's a story of Speedball, which I haven't discussed Speedball yet. I've discussed Speedball when they collected. But as for the main Doctor Strange issues. Yep. Now, there we go. Now, now in the case of the main issues themselves. Now, Roy Thomas does not write the opening few issues of this book. He actually skips some issues. Yep. 40 is written by Len Kametsky. Yep. It is mostly put Doctor Strange versus a group called the Trinity of Ashes. Yeah. Which basically comprises of a suit, a sword, and a ring. And how many times? They only appear in this issue and like one air appearance, and that was in Doctor Strange Volume 6. Yeah. They actually appeared fairly recently. Yeah. So, yeah, there was a couple issues not written by Roy Thomas. Just Len Kametsky writes a couple issues, and issue 50 is done by also Len Kametsky as well. We also have issue 50 is also the debut of the Secret Defenders. Most of it comprised of the original Defenders to take on the mindless ones. Yeah, basically this is kind of interesting though that this issue here would spawn off the actual Secret Defenders book, which lasted for a surprising 25 issues. Yep. Let's over several leaves of this issue. 51, basically if Jeff Isher would take over the writing for this book. Yep. Yes, he would. And then basically with issue number 52, basically Roy Thomas comes back. Plus, of course, we have a guest appearance in this book by Michael Morbius. think this is it right here. No. By the way, issue 8, issue 9 crossover with this very book. Yep, yeah, basically issue 9 continues basically in this book here. Len Kaminsky and Gregory Wright read this issue. Yeah, and they included in here mainly because basically Dr. Strange made guest appearance this issue, plus Len Kaminsky wrote it. Yep. Yeah, and of course Roy Thomas comes back with issue 52, and sadly he will leave with issue 56. Don't know why he left for, but he did. But the story is also really good. He co-writes it with Jeff Ishmael, who is the artist of this book. And then, of course, 54 basically deals with the Infinity Crusade. And 55, which, of course, they battle the Goddess. Yes, there's someone called the Goddess. And she's existing first period Infinity War, and she got killed off in the Crusade. Yeah, Infinity Crusade is a weird crossover. It's the next part of the Infinity Saga, where it involves basically brainwashed superheroes fighting each other. All of the music of this goddess. Yeah, it's a weird story. And of course, basically, 56 is the death, well, at the time was supposed to be the death of, well, Dr. Strange's brother, but he came back. Basically, he came back, like, if you're thinking, like, how long did he wait before they brought him back? Well, he was brought back in an Infinity comic. Yep, in an Infinity comic. Which, yeah, they actually have not collected this book for some reason. I don't know why, but they haven't. Yeah, it's strange the fact that for Roy Thomas's last issue, he kills off him. Not sure why. And in the case of 57, basically, Jeff Isherwood takes over as the main writer for this book. Yep, he takes over for this book as the main writer into issue 59. Yep, 59 will be his last appearance in the book. With issue 60, we have David Quinn on the artwork, on the writing. Yep. And he does next 2 appearances, which I will discuss those. Yeah, but the main issues basically are all pretty good. But next comes something that I really want to discuss on here. Basically, why this is going to be quite, maybe a bit lengthy. We're going to be discussing the Siege of Darkness crossover. Yep, the Siege of Darkness. Released back in 1993, started off with issue of Night Stalkers. Issue number 14 is basically here are your parts. Part 1 is Night Stalkers 14. Part 2 was Ghost Rider Volume 3 44. Part 3 is Markham Presents number 143. Part 4 is Dark Oath and Pages of Sin number 15. Morbius and Vampire 16 is Part 5. Part 6 is Markham Presents number 144. Part 7 is Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 60. Spirit of Vengeance number 17 is, I think that is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Part 8 Spirit of Vengeance. Part 9 is Night Stalkers 15. Ghost Rider 45 is part number 8. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 9. 10 is Mark Presents 145. 11 is Darkhold number 16. 11, yeah, let's see, 10. 11 is Morbius 17. Let's see. Actually, it's 12. 12 is 17. Markham Presents number 146 is part 18. Part 19 is basically Doctor Strange Sorcerer 61. Spirit of Vengeance 18 is part number 20, and then 21 is Markham Presents. Not Markham Presents. Midnight Suns Unlimited. Yes. Yeah. It is 20 issues, this damn thing. Night Stalkers is written by Stephen Grant. Yep. He writes basically the 2 issues part of this book here. Mm-hmm. Who writes the other books? Ghost Rider, of course, is Howard Mankey. Yeah. It can't be Ghost Rider without Howard Mankey. The Markham Presents issues, which for some reason they decided to squeeze in the Scarlet Witch as part of this little thing. Yes, Scarlet Witch takes part of this damn thing. I'm not sure why. It's weird because one of the main villains of the story is Lilith, who actually was the villain who actually started off the whole entire Midnight Suns in the first place, with writing Midnight Suns storyline. The other villain of the storyline is Zorthos. Yes, Zorthos, who at the time, Johnny Blaze was the host to. Johnny Blaze, for some reason, was partnered with Cyborg during the 90s, and then by the 2000s, he's back being Ghost Rider anyways. Mm-hmm. Yep. But who writes the rest of this stuff here? Well, for the Treachery story, which are the spirits, basically are Johnny Blaze, Dan Catch, Vengeance, done by Chris Cooper. The Scarlet Witch issue, Digital Terror, that is done by Kevin Redout. And work by Chris Aller. Who's Kevin Redout as? Well, it was... This writer only wrote 4 comics. Basically, Markham Presents 140 and 44, the Furious Black Widow Duty of Death, and an encyclopedia book. And that was it. Darker book was originally by Jerry Conway at the start of the series, and then with issue 4, by the time issue 15 ran around, he left the book and it was created by Chris Cooper. Yes. Now you're probably thinking, when did Chris Cooper take over as a writer of Darkhold Pages of Sin? He took over with issue well, I thought Conway did this book start. No, actually he did it. Yeah, he did from the start of it. Yes, the Darkhold Redeemers were comprised of Vicky Messon, Sam Bushin, and Laus Hastings. Those are Darkhold Redeemers. And of the 3, they're all still very much alive. Now, why is it called Pages of Sin? Because basically it's... The book itself is a creation of Jerry Conway, but he didn't write the book itself for some reason. I'm not sure why. Yeah, so with Rick Tyler as the artist, Morbius is written by Gregory Wright. Obviously. Artwork by Isaac Correa. Mark Humphrey's 144. The Morbius stuff, which basically continued from his own book, that is done by Gregory Wright, of course. The other one is basically the Dan Ketch story, is done by Chris Cooper, which that's kind of strange. Yeah, Wear It by Night basically is taking part in this too, along with Scarlet Witch. Yeah, the other stories in this book, Stage 5 is of Len Kametsky, and Algorithm of Life is by Chris Redout. The Doctor Strange book is done by David Quinn, arc by Ruby. Series of Vengeance is, of course, Howard Mankey. He does this book too, with Harry Mensa, and of course you have Night Stalkers 15. And that's actually, let's say this is part number... Then we have Ghost Rider number 45, which of course is Mankey. Mark Evans is 145. Gregory Wright, The Couches of War. The Darkhold White Letter is done by Chris Cooper. Speakeasy is Chris Cooper. Dust is Stephen Grant. Yeah, and also I'll get to what happens in these books. Mostly it's the same creative team with the whole book. Love the concept Siege Darkness. The only problem is it's too long. Like 20 freaking parts. The last name is Salome appears in issue 146. Gets killed off in issue of Doctor Strange. Yeah. As Mark represents issue 146, the Doctor Strange story, which is done by David Quinn. Ashes, which is basically Ghost Rider, is Stephen Grant. Mask is Devil Slayer, that's Chris Cooper. And Temptation is John Babacook. Of course, you have Doctor Strange issue, which is the first appearance of a being known as Strange. Strange is a character who wears the old classic Roy Thomas look from the 60s. He's a being is also he's basically a paradox character. This is actually the first appearance of this version of Strange. He surprisingly wasn't around very long. He was around for about 2 years. He appeared in this issue here, and he appeared throughout Doctor Strange's book until like issue 83, and then he basically appeared in History of Universe #1. Yep. But we're not done yet. Issue 18. So Howard Mankey. And include Menace in the Limiter 4. The main story, More Courage, as done by D.J. Sester. Yep. Menace Unlimited, this is an anthology book. Now, this event is good. I like the whole concept of it. The whole thing of some characters bickering with each other throughout the story itself, that was commonplace in some of these books I've read, like Titan's Total Chaos. But it's an excellent story. It's interesting that Morbius gets turned into a creature called Bloodthirst, and he gets redeemed by the end of the story. It's strange, though. Now, here's the thing. Now, books like Night Stalkers, Morbius, Spirits of Vengeance, Ghost Rider himself, these 4 books involve the story makes total sense. Doctor Strange, now the 4 books make no frickin' sense to be part of the story as Doctor Strange War Supreme, because this book, part of this, had nothing to do with Midnight Suns. Yeah, Doctor Strange himself was involved with the creation of Midnight Suns, but it happened to pages of Ghost Rider. Yeah, that's the only weakness of the story, is basically the fact it's too long, and the fact it involves 2 books that have virtually nothing to do with Midnight Suns. Marvel Comics Presents, which they threw this in because they needed to extend out the story, and Doctor Strange, of course. It is overall a really good event. I like the fact that, if you want to think of who's the stars of this event besides Doctor Strange is obviously the star of a lot of the story, along with Johnny Blaze, Blade, Dan Ketch. These guys are pretty much the stars. Yes, the Darkhold people don't play a really big role very much of the whole story. Sadly, this event pretty much killed the Midnight Suns line. This whole entire event. Some of the book did last for a little bit longer afterwards. Darkhold basically ended with this very crossover. Night Stalkers managed to last for 3 more issues before being axed. But what about Spirits of Vengeance? Well, that managed to last about 6 more issues before being axed. Okay. What about Marvel Comics Presents? That managed to last for another 29 issues before getting canceled, but that book is being published every couple months, so it lasts for another year before it got axed. Doctor Strange himself would last another 29 issues before being canceled. Ghost Rider Volume 3, that managed to last for a surprising, this is a bit surprising for this book. After 45, this book managed to last for, I think it was up to issue 93. It is the only book that managed to survive this whole entire thing. Yeah, it managed to last for another, about, get this, almost 50 issues. Yes, almost 50 issues longer. Yep. But what about, let's say, Morbius? Morbius surprisingly lasted a little longer than some of the other books did. Morbius managed to last to issue 32. Yes, because it went to issue 17 of this whole entire event. His thing managed to last for about 15 more issues before being canceled. But what about Midnight Suns Unlimited? That was a fresh new title they just launched. If you're really curious though, how long ago was the first issue released? This book was released quarterly over the course of a few years. Now, after issue 6, they dropped the Midnight Suns logo from the book, and the book managed to last about 3 more issues before being axed after that. But the book managed to last for about 5 more issues. It managed to basically spring along for another, about a little over a year before being canceled. Midnight Suns Unlimited was a really cool idea. It is surprising the series has never seen live trade. The first issue featured the first 2 Ghost Riders, Johnny Blaze, Dan Ketch. Second story, Darkhold. Third story, Night Stalkers. And their story featuring Morbius. Yeah, it's basically an anthology book, and its book is really good. Yeah, and plus the cover artwork is really good. There's nothing bad about Midnight Suns Unlimited. And here's the strange thing, though, about this whole entire thing. Now, here's the thing about Siege of Darkness and this particular trade for the Epic Collection. Just Doctor Strange issues and the one issue Marvel Comics Presents is the only thing that's collected from this whole entire story. This 20-part story. Yes. And here's a little fun fact about the previous event. You're thinking, what previous event? Believe it or not, when it came to some of these books, now, in the case of a book like Spirits of Vengeance, for example, This book actually had just wrapped up a major storyline called Road to Vengeance: The Missing Link, which this was a crossover between Ghost Rider and Spirits of Vengeance. Yeah, it had just wrapped this storyline, and then it led into Siege of Darkness. You thinking, really? Yes, really. Now, you might be a little bit curious, though, about... Now, here's the strange thing, though. 2930 and 2930 had nothing to do with Rise of Midnight Suns. It's like its own separate thing. Yeah. Most of it was assembled to deal with some special demons. And it's a really cool idea of an imprint. I love the whole idea of this. I didn't read it when it came out because I was a little too young. But I thoroughly enjoyed this damn thing. Mm-hmm. Night Stalkers, in my estimate, is a really cool concept. They even have a guest appearance book by the frickin' Punisher. Yes, the Punisher. And here's the thing. The second story, the second crossover they had here, which, believe it or not, I think also started with Night Stalkers. Yeah, it's called Midnight Massacre. And it's shorter than this. And you're thinking, how much shorter? It's only 5 parts. Yeah, starts in Night Stalkers number 10. Part 2 is Ghost Rider Volume number 40. 3 is Dark Grove Pages number 11. 4 is Morbius the Vampire number 12. And the 5th and final part is Spirit's Vengeance. And then Remiss Link, The Siege of Darkness. Some of the books basically involved with this stuff. It's like, at least they waited close to it's like, the only thing bad about this whole entire thing from some of these books is that it wasn't even a full year, and then we had these crossovers. And we had 3. At least that Remiss, at least that involved 2 of the series, not freaking all of them. Yeah, it's strange. I kind of wish Marvel would actually, collect these storylines. Like, collect Midnight Suns Unlimited. It's a great series. And this might surprise you, who also had stories in the Midnight Suns Unlimited book. And you're probably thinking, who else had stories in this book, you might ask? Well, believe it or not, in one issue, there's even a story for Man-Thing. Yeah, issue 2 of this very book had featured stories for Morbius. There's a character named Frank West who appeared for this one issue. There's also one for Blade himself. The Dan Ketch Ghost Rider. And that was issue 2. Issue 3, The Spirits of Vengeance. Yeah, it was just them for one issue. Issue 4, like I mentioned, was Midnight Suns and stuff. Issue number 5 was featured in the opening story Mordred the Mystic, Vengeance, Morbius, and whatever. Plus, you have really good cover like Alan Rubens does. Basically this issue 5 cover, and there's only 2 stories issue 5. They have featured Johnny Blaze himself. In issue number 6, the opening story, Doctor Strange. I wonder if this will be collected in a future story. I hope it does, because it'd be quite something. And he's there for the first 2 stories. Actually, this whole book is about him. Yeah. This I would personally love to see collected in one of the Doctor Strange books. Wouldn't be surprised if it isn't. 7 is when they dropped the Midnight Suns logo on the book, and the opening story, when Spirit moves, is Jericho Drum, aka Dr. Voodoo, Michael Morbius, and Dan Ketch. That's the opening story. The second story features Nathaniel Moore, who only appeared for this one story. And it also features a story for Blade and Wear It by Night. In issue number 8, it featured Man-Thing, Blade, Strange, and Scarlet Witch. The 9th and final issue featured Blazing Skull, the Ghost Rider of the 40s, Legion of Night, who previously appeared in their own 2-issue book, and this book here, and that was it for them. And that was it. Would I recommend checking out Sage Darkness? Yes, but you gotta read the whole freaking stuff related to this stuff. Like, the Ghostwriter. Well, basically, you gotta have been reading Ghostwriter at this point in time in order to understand what the heck is going on with the stuff. You got to. I will eventually reviewing Ghostwriter Volume 3, like, basically the first trade that collects it in the future, because this book is just fantastic. I love the Howard Mankey run. Surprisingly, he didn't stay in the book very long. Book managed to last for a few more years even after he left. Yep. But yeah, by the way, I get the Doctor Strange issues. The ones that, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention here. The annual. Yes, I almost forgot the annual for Doctor Strange. You're thinking, really? You forgot the annual? Yes. Yeah, I almost forgot to do the annual. Talk about the annual here. The annual itself features basically Doctor Strange and someone called Curse of Cullen. The openings, now pretty much the first two stories are written and drawn by Jeff Isherwood. The last story is by Sully Fush. Yeah, and here's the thing about this book that I should bring up here. Let's see if I can bring it up here. Let's see. Here we go. The character Cullen, this was his first appearance. And after this book, he appeared as a recurring character in the pages of Doctor Strange, Star Issue 54. Appeared sporadically. After 77, he disappeared for years until he popped up in Fears of the Fearless, associated with Hydra. Yes. First appearance of some Celtic gods like Morgan. Yeah, Morgan, as in basically the creature who, Banshee took the power from to become the mythological Banshee. Yep. That's only the opening story. It's like, okay, we got the curse, we got the oath. It's all about the of this character that did with Mordo. It's a weird story, but that's the end of what itself, what it is. Mm-hmm. Now here's the interesting thing. We have one annual left. Yep, we have one annual to go for Doctor Strange. And that's it. That one we discuss in the Comic Corner. That's part of a storyline which I will be discussing in the future when it comes to this particular series called Strangers Among Us. A 4-part story starts the pages of Doctor Strange Source 3 issue 64 and concludes this very end. I will discuss it in the future. Yep. But what did I give these issues? The Siege of Darkness, I'll give that a 9. The only criticism, like I said, the only criticism we have toward the whole event is its length. It's too long. Like 20 freaking parts. If Mark puts this whole thing in trade, it would take about 2 volumes because it's so freaking long. Though they could do a complete collection of this whole thing. That would be something. But this would have to collect a bunch of other stuff too. Presumably. Yes, if I were Marvel, I would collect the books, the basic part of this whole thing. Excuse me, in separate trades. Night Stalkers, if you take out the Midnight Massacre issue and the 2 issues of this book, and this issue 1 was already collected in that other book, just like put a little text there. If you were issue 1, read Red Midnight Sunshine. We have a new printing of that one. And then you have 2 through 9. And then it's 11 through, I think it's 15. And then you have, no, not 15. It's 11 through 13. And you can basically put in between like where these issues are, read them in the Massacre, which we're published at. And same thing with 16, 17. Read this trade here. And then basically cap it off with the last 3 issues. I mean, think about it. That's only like, let's see, 8 plus 3. That's 11. Plus another 3. That's roughly 14 issues. You could basically do one complete trade for that one. Just basically put text stuff basically to find the other stuff. So you can basically get the whole series. Experience Venture, you can kind of do the same thing with this one. Mostly. This one's a little bit longer. Though I would definitely skip the opening issue. Just go straight to the main series itself. And just basically have Road Missing collecting 1 trade, not basically 2 trades. It'd be kind of basically strange when it comes to that one. That's what I recommend. But it's up to Marvel if they want to do it. In my opinion, Marvel, collect it. Like, I would think that hopefully with that particular street, people be very curious about the Midnight Suns. I hope so. I hope this isn't a ban for them, because I personally would love to see it. Especially since you have a freaking video game with the same name, just with an alternate spelling. Yeah. I mean, heck, you brought back the Midnight Suns pages of Marvel Zombies for a miniseries. So, I'm sure some people will be really curious. What about the original Midnight Suns? Well, you know, technically second incarnation, but basically the first published one. Do that, because the only thing out there for trade-wise, Midnight Suns, aside from the 2-issue Sorcery Collecting is Epic Collection, is the Rise Midnight Suns, which is collected in trade. Yes, do more. That's my only suggestion. Okay, so that's the episode review. Next step probably be our Ultimate review, and that'll be probably it. Maybe in our Comic Corners. Okay, next video. Bye.